Drew, that's the wrong committee.
Oops, my bad. Let me switch that.
I was just going to make an official announcement there, but
Right.
all right, I think it's time to get the meeting started. We officially have Erica and Beth from the Public Rules and Public Policy Committee in attendance. Mr. Milanovac sent an email and said that he would not be able to make it, and I believe Ms. Zorb said that she was tentative, and it doesn't look like she's going to be here. And also looks like Mr. Mosby has joined us. So we can, since we do have an official quorum, we can at least officially approve the minutes from the previous meetings. As we've talked about for many months and meeting times here, we were a little behind on getting them together, but you should have all received that link. Hopefully you have access. I think the link was access to the whole folder, so you could look at all of them. And I think in my email I put the naming convention in there, would be the year, the month, and the day. So hopefully you both have had an opportunity to review those minutes, or if we need to take a little bit of time to look at those now, we can do that. Or if you've looked at them and thought, well, I think they're pretty close, then we'll go ahead and accept those, and we'll get those submitted.
I actually had an opportunity to read them all, and they look pretty, pretty much like what I remember,
Pretty close anyway, huh? What do you think, Beth?
I'm cool with them.
Okay, then there's 3 of the 4. What do we officially have? We have 5 in our committee, don't we? And everyone, the 3 of us are agreeable. I will go ahead and finalize those and get those submitted for posting online. Ooh, I'm caught up.
Woohoo!
Yeah, all right. All right, unfinished or old business, the charter hard copies, first thing on the agenda. I believe you both are aware that everything looks good for the changes. The online version has been updated, and I believe I have everything clear on the hard copy here. So it was my intent, as I mentioned before, to go ahead and present that to the council floor at the next meeting. And hopefully everyone, if there's any questions particular, we can address those. But unless either you two have noticed anything in there that I should address now.
No?
No, I haven't noticed anything.
Okay, the only thing that we'll do on the front cover, I think actually every page, the footer is, I'll put the date in there, which should be September 8th if it's accepted, so that it'll show up on every page in that document, and that way we'll know that that is the most recent copy that will be used. So that'll be the only change once we get it accepted.
Okay.
Next on the list again is the continued discussion of editing any of those older, more specific laws of the ordinances. First one was that building official discussion, and as I put in the agenda, at that previous meeting, I agreed that we'd go ahead. I'd start working with the law director and try to put something in that ordinance to 2013 to, I think we were just mainly going to take out that one line in there, so it shouldn't be that difficult. I have not done that. Hopefully I can get that taken care of, or at least continue to move forward with it, get with Mr. Dieters and verify what would make sense on there, and get a piece of legislation together so that we can bring it to the floor. I think,
So
go ahead.
have you talked to him about the building officials issue yet?
No, not at all. I have not talked to anybody other than just our committee about that. So, like I said, I think it was kind of understood that the one particular line, if we just take out the line that says council, it's the duty of council to appoint, I think it was what it was. If we just take that one line out, I don't see, then it kind of just keeps it clear. And if he's included in the salary and personnel ordinance, then that's good. At least it sets the salary and all that, which we have the authority to do. And if it's a contract, then of course a contract would have to come to us for us to authorize the city administrator to execute the contract. So I think just taking that one sentence out of there is really all we're going to need to do. But again, I'll present that to Mr. Dieters, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Okay.
Then the second one that we're spent a lot of time on is the campers, trailers, trucks, RVs, etc. Kind of the same thing. I agreed to get with the law director to discuss, particularly it looks like Ordinance 6 of 1979 would be the right one, that we would simply specify the classification of those vehicles that could be parked in driveways, including the front yard. We have to remember that when we say front yard, I believe that meant anything in front of the front door. Mm-hmm. So the driveway is considered front yard, but as long as we specify that it's on the driveway, then we should be able to move forward with that, and it should help clear up if any of the residents want to do that. It would fall under all other limitations as far as sightline safety issue, but it would allow them to at least put it in the driveway. And again, hey, I'm not a lawyer and don't pretend to be one. I'll check this. I'll run this past Mr. Dieters, and we'll try to get that piece of legislation, get that going with him. So,
I have a question for you. I'm sorry.
Erica, go ahead.
Is this something that you had like asked for public comments about, or I just don't know what the history of this particular one is. Like, do we know like what kind of what the citizens want, or because I don't want to change something and then get a bunch of people mad at us, so we get like a million emails. I'm not afraid of the emails, but I just,
No, I understand. Hold on to that, Erica. Ron, you had something?
I did. So a couple of things. Yeah, I mean, the charter itself can't be changed without approval anyway from the citizens. But the thing that I was going to point out to you is that where you were talking about the front yard, I just wanted to be specific because I had inquired about this. So the driveway is part of the front yard, as you said, all the way up to the front of the house. So just to be clear, it's not the whole driveway. That comes into play when, like in my house, the driveway goes because of where the garage is in the front, the driveway is considered part of that front yard. But if the driveway is like a side yard, then it's only the front yard up to the front end of the house.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that at one of our previous meetings. And remember also, Ron, that, or at least be aware, these are just ordinances, so there's no change to the charter at all here. These are just ordinances that need to be revised in some form or fashion. So,
thanks.
Erica, you're welcome. Erica, no, we have not. we've not like canvassed the area, talked to citizens in the grand scheme of things. The issue to me was that it happened personally. It's no longer, I'm not trying to fight the battle for myself at this point. I don't have the RV anymore, so it's not an issue. Again, the concern was that discrepancy between a couple of those ordinances or codified ordinances. One saying that you can't have a truck, a boat, a trailer, a camper in the front yard, and then the other one that said you can't have it in the front yard. You can't have a recreational vehicle in the front yard except in the driveway. So that was where there was just some of those confusing statements there, and if we could clean those up just a little bit. We're not changing anything else, where the bigger issue I think was people parking things in their grass, and there are still other ordinances and laws that you can't park them in the street anyway. So the bigger concern was, it's kind of I want to say it's a matter of allowing some use of my personal property, but again, not being detrimental to my neighbors and to our community as a whole. So if you recall in the earlier discussion, the idea of the recreational vehicles, some people would consider those to be the ones that you drive, that have a motor and a steering wheel, et cetera, and you can drive those. Where the other types of vehicles or apparatus that was listed, like boats and trailers and campers, are almost always towed by another vehicle. And we wouldn't be changing that. We would just be going back to the idea that the vehicles that are drivable could be parked in the driveway, even if that driveway was considered the front yard because it's in front of the house. So one of my problems with the way it's written right now is a Class B RV is really nothing more than a conversion van, if you will. And many people would consider, their conversion van is something that they drive daily. They drive, well, I don't know if you hear too much about conversion vans anymore, right? But overall, it's nothing more than a van. It's the size of a van, just with some extras on the inside. So again, some people may use this particular Class B type RV as their daily driver. And we're saying that because it would be considered a recreational vehicle or a camper, that they can't even park the thing in their driveway. And I think that's, I don't think that's acceptable. I was told when I met with our prosecutor when I was cited to court, he gave me a real brief part of the history, and it had to do actually with the construction of Cross County Highway, because you had the workers were putting campers, I believe, just like a regular pool camper, in the front yards in different places, so they were living in them temporarily while they were doing the construction work. And of course, the community was like, well, we don't want a bunch of trailers parked in people's front yards, and that's where a lot of this came from. So that's kind of the backstory and some of the history on there. If anything, other than obviously we're not, every law, every ordinance, you're rarely going to get 100% acceptance and compliance. So I'm sure somebody having a Class A, one of those larger ones, motorhome or RV in their driveway, some of the neighbors are not going to be happy with that. But on the flip side of that, that particular property owner is not happy with the law the way it is. So I can't imagine. I think a couple of things, right? We don't know how many people in North Dodge Hill are going to have this particular type of recreational vehicle. And again, we specify that it's classified as Class A, Class B, and Class C. So it's not like they can put other types in their driveway. So again, I'm going to run all this past Bill, and see how he feels about it. If he thinks, we're kind of just going too far or whatever. And, if we pull something together, of course, it'll be officially brought to council, and we can talk about it a little bit there, and then to see how the rest of the council members feel about it. So. All right. Rules of council would be next on the agenda. And there was a couple of things, I looked them over a little bit today, and I plan on making a motion to change, as you see in the agenda. Section 4.1 is the part that says that our council meetings commence at 7:30 p.m., and that hasn't been the case for quite some time. So I'm going to plan on making that incremental change. That's what we've been talking about for months now. Instead of trying to make that big sweeping change throughout all the rules of council, if you see something in there that doesn't make sense, we can talk about it, and then someone can obviously make a motion to change it while at the council meeting. And if we get a majority of the council members to agree to change it, then we'll make that change. So I plan on at least getting this party started, getting the ball rolling, if you will, by changing that one. At least section 4.1 talks about the time, and I'll make the motion something to reference the time that's noted on the approved calendar, because our calendar already says the meetings will begin at 7 p.m. and they'll be on these certain dates. So that's kind of where I'm headed with that. Anybody got any thoughts on it?
You can't see me shaking my head, but I'm
No.
good.
All right. I was actually looking, I wrote a couple of others down for the rules of council. Again, they were very minor, so I'll probably have maybe one or two other ones that I think will be pretty easy and pretty understanding for all of council. I don't
Well,
believe
Jim, we have some time right now. Why don't you share with the class?
All right. The only other one that I immediately thought of was in 3. 3.1. I thought this was interesting. The council chamber shall be under the supervision and control of the presiding officer. That's fine. And it goes on to say the council chamber and the caucus rooms shall be used solely by the mayor, council, and the committees for the transaction of the business of the city. Now, at first reading, it's not a big deal, right? But then if we think back and up until the pandemic, we Thrive using the council chambers for an educational thing, right? Which would not fall. It's not the mayor, it's not council, and it's not any of the committees, and it's not the transaction of the business of the city. So technically, by allowing them to use council chambers for the We Thrive food training thing, cooking program or whatever, somebody is violating our own rules. And we never at any time said, oh, we know the rule says that, but does everybody agree that they're allowed to do that? We've never done it. So, technically we've allowed a violation of a rule. So I would just like to take out that last sentence and just leave it at the council chambers under the supervision and control of the presiding officer when council or committee is in session. And other than that, it can be used how administration or the mayor or council or the committees feel it's appropriate. Because also I would have to think that based on this paragraph, the commissions, like planning commission and those, they don't really fall into here, right? So it's kind of so I would just like to take out, and again, I don't foresee that being a big issue. And it's kind of a way to at least get everyone else thinking about, hey, there's maybe some silly things in here that we didn't think about when it first got rewritten. And we should kind of review it for peruse through there. And if we see things like this that just don't make sense, we can bring them up at the council meeting and again, majority vote. That's what I'm looking for. The majority vote would then say, yeah, let's scratch that and go ahead and make that change. So that was the other one I was really thinking, and then more of a what am I thinking? Not utility. Anyway, the cover. Obviously, the cover of the rules of council right now state that these rules were adopted for the years 2018, 2019. And I think if we all remember early in the year, I don't remember if it was our very first meeting on January the 1st or one of the earlier meetings. I need to find the date. But we all agreed that we would continue to use these until council voted to make some changes. So I would like to change that and simply that the cover would say it was adopted on whatever the date was, January 1 of 2020. Yeah, 2019 or 2020.
It was,
And then-
it had to have been this year because I
Yeah.
was at that meetings.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it would just say adopted, January 1, 2020, revised on September 8th, 2020, something like that, just to clean up the cover sheet, and because it currently says that it was for the years 2018 and 2019. So again, three minor things, and again, the hope would be, other folks would start looking at it more closely and realize there's some things that should be addressed in there.
Bless you. I can see you sneezing into your elbow.
All right, and then the last thing, or at least in this section on my agenda, was again the continued discussion about electronic documents. Did the two of you and even Ron, did you folks attempt or have any problems looking at the agenda or accessing the minutes?
I have not had any issues accessing any documents that you've shared with me so far. And I actually think that this is probably a really good way to kind of give people access to, all of our, like the previous minutes and that kind of thing. I guess the next step is just going to be to meet with Mr. Mosby. I did actually look at several, like just the information that needs to be on every agenda and meeting minutes, I think, or it's just obviously the name of the committee, the date that the committee is meeting, and who the chair is, who the vice chair, who the members are, who's present at the meeting, and as well as I think we should probably include like who actually wrote the minutes. I think that that's something that maybe we want to consider adding to that. So I just need to meet with Mr. Mosby at this point, just to kind of, get like the specific logistics of what that looks like and, how it happens so that I can actually like draft some kind of directions or something like that. And we can maybe add that to the council rules in some kind of way. And then that way, it's, kind of required, including but not limited to required in the meeting minutes, because, some meetings are, just very sparse, and then others, just, I probably type too much, but, I don't type so much that I think it will get us in trouble, but, I want people to be able to go back and look at the minutes and know what we talked about. So I think that's just, that's kind of my goal. And I have been super busy with my practice. So I am going to kind of reach out to Mr. Mosby and sit down with him because, he's been very, very open, very welcoming. So, I'll try to scratch out a day to meet with him. But, the nature of my practice is when I get a new client and they have court, I go. That's how it works. So So just to let you know, I actually did, there has been some movement. I kind of know what I want to do. We just have to get it implemented, and I'm hoping we can get that done for at least by the second meeting in September, so that we can,
Okay.
present that to, council to vote on to add to the rules. And, hopefully we can, I don't know, I know this is probably, blasphemy, but maybe we can find, hire somebody at, just $10 an hour to scan all those old documents in for us to, just kind of get that, get it done and get them all electronic, and, we'll just figure it out from there.
Yeah, I know I was looking for the minutes to, I guess probably the minutes that would be related to this discussion about the rules of council. And I did a quick review on our website, and I found, of course, the agendas and the minutes. And when I looked through the list of minutes, obviously the one that I was looking for, and others I'm sure, was not there. And there was one that was like early part of January, and when I opened it, it was actually a committee meeting minute. And I thought, it wasn't real obvious and real clear. Of course, we've said this, Erica, you've been saying this from the beginning, and it's been even said prior to you. So it's definitely something that needs to be done, and it's a matter of, getting it done. I know the clerk in the past has been trying to get some things organized, but it's a big task, and there's
It is,
a couple big books over there.
And honestly, we've got, I think we have wiggle room, because there were a couple of positions that were going to be eliminated with our salary ordinance. So maybe we should do that first, and then maybe we can try to find somebody part-time to come in and kind of get that done. Just maybe somebody who lives around here, take applications or something. And I mean, it's not that hard. It's just, there needs to be somebody who actually sits down and gets it done, and maybe, if they're in the city center, Mr. Mosby can kind of stick his head in there to make sure they're actually doing work and not, scrolling on Facebook or whatever, just so that we can get, those documents in a place where we can find them, and we can, make reference to them, because I mean, we are required to have them. And while I'm not like overly concerned right this moment, it makes my skin crawl a little bit that it's not done yet.
Yeah. So one of the things you had mentioned that you wanted to see on our template or whatever was the person who actually created the minutes. And I guess to some degree, whoever would officially sign the minutes saying that they were accepted or whatever would be that person. Now, obviously, if we're keeping them electronic and there's no official signature, maybe it's nothing more than just putting that name at the bottom of the minutes, recorded by, and then that person's name, whether it's signed or not, it would, at least there would be a name there.
I think that makes perfect sense. I don't think it needs to be signed, but at least we should have a person that we can go back to and say, I don't know, something. Or
Yeah,
honestly, I don't want to sound, kind of however this is going to sound. It's not going to sound great, I'm sure, but if you can't get the minutes right, then, I think that you shouldn't be able to be a chair of a committee if you can't get the documents and everything, correct. If we can't figure out what your committee is doing, then we need to have something in the rules that say you can't be the chair.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but you got to remember, we are a small community. we have limited a limited involvement as it relates to local politics. And, you know, I will admit, I didn't necessarily want to be the chair. So, you know, if we say
Well,
whoever
Jim,
is the
that's
chair,
what happens when you miss meetings.
that's a good point. But having said that, right? So if I'm a terrible note taker and I just can't convey what took place in the meeting, then
We wouldn't have suggested you if you were a terrible note taker, Jim.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the future, right? So because your concern is, look, if you can't take notes right, then you shouldn't be on the chair. And some people are like, well, you know, I'm terrible at notes. I guess I can't be chair. Too bad. I guess you have to find somebody else. And yeah, we're kind of in that spot. You know, it's almost like volunteer somewhere, right? It's like, well, they're not a very good volunteer. Yeah, but at least they do something. I don't know.
Well, maybe we can require them to get somebody else to take the minutes. And I mean, there has to be some kind of accountability about the minutes. It's just,
Yeah.
it's, you know, and I'm not saying they need to be like a perfect transcript of what happened at the meeting, but, you know, I do think that there needs to be, you know, there needs to be some kind of accountability, I think.
Yeah, and you know, really, this could get, not what you're saying could get bad, but there definitely is an option to generate a transcript pretty easily through the video, right? So you could, in theory, run a little program. I think Google will actually do it. It'll listen to the videos via YouTube, and it will create a transcript of everything that's said. Now, obviously, those notes are going to be outrageous, and that's probably the wrong direction we want to go. But
Right, sure.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, that's the electronic docs part. I think using the Google Suite product, which we already have, I think that's definitely the right start. And I think you're right, Erica, that by putting some direction in the rules specifically would help the newbie who comes in and comes into council for one, and then whatever position they have in a committee, you can look at the rules of council and see that here's, you have to use this template and you have to do this, and the minutes need to be completed at this certain time, and they have to be filed in this location with this naming convention. And that way anybody coming in new will be able to do that and, be able to, and not have to wonder what's the right way to do it. I definitely think that's the right direction. And it looks like we're kind of headed that way. So, all right, any new business anybody want to talk about?
I don't think it's related to us. Well, you know what? It kind of is related to you.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say why. I don't remember in what meeting it was, but I remember that we've been having some discussions with the law director about, his contract and what we would require for him to do. And I think that one of the suggestions that he made was that he would participate as a part of this committee. So I think that, that's kind of one of those things that's just kind of floating in the ether, and we haven't really done anything with it. We need to figure out, if we need to go into executive session or whatever we need to do, but we need to say yay or nay to the law director contract, or if we want to go back to him and try to negotiate, then maybe we do that. But I really just feel like we need to just kind of figure out what we want to do with that. And because it's just like I said, we're just kind of, plodding along, not making a decision.
Yeah.
I thought the
and
amount of money he wanted was crazy though, to add. I just didn't like that
Yeah,
part.
I don't know if the idea was to use him instead of our current prosecutor, then I was thinking that some of the money we're obviously paying the prosecutor would offset the difference. But I mean, this
Well,
is
the
one of the
problem with
issues.
that, Jim, is that he actually increased his quote based on the fact that he would be acting as the prosecutor. So, I mean, I
Okay.
I kind of agree with that. We need to figure out if we like that number, if we don't, or, and if we don't, we need to, say, hey, we don't like this number, but we like this number instead. We need to,
Yeah.
I'm just saying we need to make a decision, up or down, and go with that.
Yeah, I think a couple of things, and I started to say this is one of my concerns, not this issue specifically, but the idea that we've been talking about this for a while, and part of the reason it drags on is because we're in summer session, right? So we only meet once a month directly as council members, and then we have our separate committees. So it's really difficult because the summer session cuts out that one meeting. It's really difficult to stay focused on those issues or to bring them back up at the next meeting a month later. I'm not a fan of summer session being, only calling for the one meeting. I would, because look, just like, well, not so much tonight because this is committee, but at any time, a council member may not be at a particular council meeting. So in the summertime, whether they miss the second meeting of the month or whatever, I don't think it's really that, it shouldn't be that. I don't find any real benefit in saying, oh, it's summertime and I only have one council meeting a month. If I wanted to take a vacation and we had a meeting planned, well, then I would just be absent for that meeting. Not to be flippant about my responsibilities, but again, we have other responsibilities in our lives with our families or whatever. So we're going to miss council meetings, and if it happens to be during summer or whatever, because that's when a lot of people have vacation time coming or they need it with the children, then that's when it's going to be. But it just seems to me that the delay really causes, it really slows down our progress, I think.
Is the summer session, is that a part of the council rules, or what is that?
Let me think now. Now that you mention that, I don't recall that being anywhere in the charter. I do know that it is officially in our calendar, and I think through time, that has been the accepted general calendar schedule, being summer session in June, July, and August would only be the first Monday of the month would be our only meeting. So yeah, maybe that's one of them spots where someone else could be like, since we're talking about the rules of council, now you got to remember,
Right.
in order to make that change in the rules, you're going to have to get a majority. And, some of the council members may like the idea that they're only meeting once a month during those 3 months. So I can tell you this, I would support getting rid of the so-called summer session and continue to meet twice a month like every other month. So I would definitely support that idea and that change. But again, I don't know how everyone else would feel about that. So, but I was headed there. Another part of that you had mentioned about going into executive session, and yes, I would agree that I believe our law director is officially listed as an employee, or because we don't really have a contract, right? So there's a title and there is a salary. So that would be a valid reason, right, to go into executive session. And I think if we're going to really go through that that proposal, if you will, then I think that would be the best place. That would be our next move, would be to go into executive session and really talk about it that way and decide how we wanted to move forward. So I don't know if you noticed, Erica, but I did include Mr. Dieters in my email and sharing of this document for tonight's meeting. So if he's available, he was invited, of course, and for whatever reason, he did not show up. So he's not officially a part of the committee, and maybe that's maybe that would have to be changed probably in the charter, which becomes a bigger issue, of course. But that could be a part of the law director's responsibilities, would be a member of the Rules and Public Policy Committee. So,
Okay. Well, maybe that's something we need to do as well, is create a charter commission to review sections of the charter this year. So that might be something else that you can add to new business. I mean, it's I think that there are some issues with the charter personally. So
yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it, Erica, that because obviously I've been on a charter commission, you and Matt was on a the last charter review commission, and then you kind of go through the process, and then afterwards you look back and you go, darn, I wish we'd have addressed that, or it's like, how did we miss
Right.
that or something? So yeah, it's unfortunate sometimes you kind of get moving in one direction and you don't see the forest for the trees. So okay, that's all I have. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about? I guess specifically new business, but if not, we've obviously got a few more minutes before the next meeting. So anything else, we'll officially adjourn this meeting and take a 15-minute break.
I don't have anything.
All right, Beth, you good for now? You're
Yes.
in the dark.
I know.
I was gonna say you're in the dark. I couldn't see if you gave me a thumbs
There's
up.
something wrong with this. I can't figure it out. Watch. Oh, it's light. It gets dark.
Well, it's the backlight is what gets you. That window.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Mr.
have
Mosby,
nowhere else
anything
to
from
go.
you?
No, I don't have anything, Jim.
All right. That being the case, we'll officially adjourn this meeting, and then the next meeting officially begins at 7:30. I'll see you folks there.
All
Okay.
right, see you guys then.
All right.
Jim and Beth, are you guys ready to get started?
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. I have sent some documents to everyone in advance of this meeting. So I'm going to, as I usually do, I usually take notes while we're in the meeting. So first of all, I realized that I have not really haven't gone through the May meeting minutes with my usual level of detail. So I'm still working on that. I'll get that to everyone by next month's meeting. The July meeting minutes, however, I was able to send to you guys. Did you have an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
And are those
Unfortunately, I
okay?
did not.
Yeah.
Jim, do you want an opportunity to review them?
Yes, I will take only a quick moment, but was it attached in the email?
Yes, it was.
Oh, there's a whole lot of attachments in the email.
There is.
All right, let me take a, which one is that? Oh, it's meeting at 7:27. Okay, yeah, from what I'm reading and my recollection, I would, these appear to be correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so now on to the fire department. I actually did have an opportunity to speak to Chief Fells about the incident where with the young man and who was hit by the car, and the fire department not having enough people to get him to the hospital. And what happened was someone called in sick for their shift on that particular day, and they actually had to have a police officer drive the ambulance to the hospital to make sure that they had enough people available to get him to the hospital. So obviously, that's a concern. But they were able to figure it out and make it work. It's just something that we just need to be mindful of, and whatever we can do to support our fire department, I want to do that. I know that there's we are required by law, by our charter and by law, to provide that service to the citizens of North College Hill. So if we don't have our own fire department, we would have to contract with another community. So either way it goes, we would be paying for it. So I think that we just need to figure out, what we want to do.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, we've been there. for a while now.
Does
Okay.
anyone know what happened with the Mel Healthy vote that they had in August, early August?
Yes, they passed
Passed.
their,
Oh, wow.
yeah, their levy passed. So, and actually what was really notable about that was, I'm trying to take notes at the same time, was that there was only a total of maybe 500 votes, give or take, that decided like the entire issue for the entire community. So
Wow.
I didn't realize it was that low.
yeah, it was very low. So you're talking about like there was 200 and something votes for and 200 and something votes against. And
Right. It was about 280 for and about 230 against.
Wow.
yeah.
For what, like a 12% or a 12 mil levy?
12.5. I think it was a 12.5 mil levy.
But that's in addition to their previous levy, right, Mr. Mosby?
Correct. Actually,
Yeah.
both levies are permanent levies. So they won't be able to go up, but they're permanent. So yes, I mean, yeah, you are correct, Eric. That means that basically they have over 17 mils for their fire department.
Wow.
Woo.
So even though North College Hill is a small community, I don't believe that we would have that, we would have way more voter turnout than that for a fire levy. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. Chief Fells did also advise me of a recent grant that he was able to secure for the fire department. So I would also, just kind of, remind you guys that he really does a good job for us. I'm so appreciative of everything that he does because he's, he hasn't like taken classes or anything to learn how to do this, but he does this, just to, to make the fire department better. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions or comments or concerns about the fire department?
Not right
Nope.
now.
Okay, so onto the police department. We did receive a report from the police department. Thank you very much, Mr. Mosby. I did attach that to my meeting agenda. Did everybody have an opportunity to briefly review that?
I did
Yeah.
not, but I'm okay.
So I think that the last few pages were, had, some information about like the kind of calls that they had. I didn't really see, see. I didn't really see moving violations. Oh, yes, I do. Okay, never mind. Like traffic violations, but so does anybody have any questions about the report or anything like that?
I have a question about something. When and it's probably like a Ohio thing or a county thing too. All the temp tags. There's like, I guess does everybody still have 90 days after COVID finally goes away? Is that it? There's so many cars with temp tags and you can't even read the dates.
Yeah, so
I actually had a guy fly past me on Bison going 60. I threw my hands in the air, my car, like, oh my God. He stopped. He flew through the stop signs. I feared for my life. And the only thing I could think of to do quickly was call 911. I was afraid because he stopped, start reversing, and was waiting to see what I was going to do.
Oh my God.
And the lady on the phone was really, really helpful with me. I said, I'm so sorry I called you. Like, it was the quickest thing I could do. I said, he's still sitting there. And the only description I could give was the make of the car, the color, how many doors, but the temp tag, you couldn't read it. But I know where he lives.
I think a part of the problem with those, I call them the 30-day tags, because a lot of times when you're driving along and then some car comes and does something crazy next to you, they often have 30-day tags. I don't know why that is, but I'm like, I'm convinced that that's a thing. So I think that with COVID, there was like a grace period that was given for how long they had to actually get their official license plates. I believe that grace period has expired, but don't quote me on that.
Okay,
but that's probably why we have that. I mean, but I agree with you. There's, I don't know. I guess we could probably follow up.
We could make some money off people that are parking on the streets or running stop signs and have temp tags and you can't read them and this, that, and other. So, I've also got I guess he's homeless, but he lives out of his car. And I think he lives on our streets every now and then, and he'll use one street at a time throughout the week. He shows up on La Boido, and then he uses the bathroom and water bottles, and then he leaves them for someone else to pick them up.
Oh, that's gross. Okay.
I have photos. But yeah, that's been happening this summer too.
Have you contacted Chief Schran to talk to him about that?
Not yet. My husband's the one with the photos on, so I'm just gonna print them out and send them their way. It's a temp tag too. Oh, well. But that's what I was gonna do. I was just gonna print them out and send them over there, drop them off.
I will tell you that the 30-day tags are just kind of those are like a menace. So I would suggest like just giving, and I know it's probably, but Chief Schran is very approachable. I would give him a call.
Okay.
And just ask him, what to do about that. That sounds interesting. That he's living in his car and parking on your street. That's kind of disturbing. Okay.
Erica?
Yes.
In this report is, how did you get a chance to talk to Chief Schran about the report as far as his ability to create this regularly now, or is this a bigger struggle still, or what is the status of these reports?
I did not talk to Chief Schran directly, and actually Mr. Mosby is the person who emailed the report to me. I personally didn't really like the format of it, but I just thought I would get feedback from everyone before, I kind of talked about it, because I'm just one person.
It's very similar to what we've seen in the past, so I guess I'm more surprised that we haven't seen them for such a long time when it looks so much like previous ones prior to the fail or whatever.
Okay, so your question is like, will we see these reports on a regular basis?
Yeah, and I guess I know you had brought this up in the past, but if this is really a report that's very similar to the previous reports, why were we not getting reports for so many months? But
Mr. Mosby, are you there?
Yes.
Do you have any insight about that?
No, I mean, other than if you were, I'm not sure, Jim, if you're just asking, why were those reports not generated? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, and I know, I mean, I understand that there was a lot of problems previously, but I guess Erica has been asking for these reports for many months, and it seemed like we were getting this, the response was, because of the system crash and we didn't have a way to do the reporting or something. But this looks very similar to those previous reports. So I'm just kind of surprised why we didn't have them before. I guess I could leave it as somewhat rhetorical, but if you could offer some explanation, it might make us feel better.
No, I mean, I was going to say, I don't think there was an issue, and it's still an issue because we're not obviously going to get the system that we were talking about, the reporting system, until probably October is what we're looking at right now. Some of the information that that is there, clearly they would have to put it together manually, which is in essence what they were doing. So I'm nothing per se. I mean, I don't think there's any particular reason in the past about it as a report. The only thing that I would even say about it is, other than the fact that, one of the things that I would prefer to do is not just give a report that just simply says, okay, these are numbers, because while it does give you a historical record, I mean, what are you going to end up doing with it? In other words, if it's not information that you can use to make a policy decision, I'm just not certain, I mean, just being frank with everyone, I just don't know how much benefit that is to just simply push paper.
Miss
Yeah,
Underwood, I'm sorry.
No, go
Yes,
ahead,
Mayor Nichols.
Nichols. I do believe the report, Officer Ferguson, if I'm not mistaken, used to generate that report, and he's no longer with the force. I think that's probably part of the reason. I do recall from what I was told in the previous years that he was the one that was responsible for that report. And you're right, Mr. O'Shea, it is similar, just like the one that he used to produce. And maybe they just found someone else to do it, or they're just not getting back to it because you guys have been asking for it.
No, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I mean, I will say that when I did speak with Erica, and she, clearly said that she wanted the report, I did speak to them about it. But again, I just think that I would like to be able to provide something that a person will be able to say, okay, this is something that we can do in order to make, a policy decision on something, as opposed to just saying, okay, last month we had, 38 or 120 traffic stops. Clearly that report ends up showing up, to be honest with you, in the mayor's court report, because that's where the revenue comes in from that. So, that's basically the resulting issue of the activity. Obviously, more serious crimes that are committed, specifically, like homicides, or if there are arsons or something like that, those things, and counsel has asked me to let them know, after a reasonable time, when those things happen. So those things you all know about immediately, as soon as practical, let me put it that way. So
Well, Mr. Mosby, what I would just say, we're not asking for, or I'm not asking, I didn't request the report just to require somebody to push paper. However, when we were kind of going through our whole budget, what I'm going to call our budget fight, or our budget battle, whatever you want to call it, the department that gets the most money is the police department. And if all I get is one report, and this is the report, and that's what I have to go on, then, maybe, what a good reason to get these reports is that I say, maybe we should put that money toward the fire department and not the police department, because I don't see that we need the number of officers we have if all I have is this small piece of information from the police department.
Yeah, I would agree.
I suppose you could say that. I mean, I couldn't argue with you until that moment comes when, the other day, SWAT was called, or unfortunately, as you all of you know, we sadly had a homicide earlier this year. And when we're looking at, being able to have something that you said earlier, Erica, which is very true. You pointed out, with the fire department, the same with the police department, by law, we have to provide public safety. Again, I will say that, and the mayor and I have talked about this particular issue, and I would say, again, 100%, you are correct. I mean, if you just look at our general fund budget, not the levies, but just as you look at our general fund, the police, first of all, they have the greatest number of full-time employees, and they certainly require, the training and the weapons and all of that. So yes, they do take up the greatest, proportion of our budget. It's so all of those things that you said are absolutely correct. I don't know that I would necessarily, because, like, for example, one of our officers is, we basically loan that person, to the school during the school year as a school resource officer. Looking down the road also, in not this year, not 2020, but 2021, we are looking at some retirements, and I think it's of about three police officers. So I've been working with Chief, as far as what we will be able to do to bring, police officers on board to hire them. So no, I'm not, and I'm not, suggesting that you don't need a report, but obviously it does, as you also just pointed out, it does take time to put that together. I know that, I've heard some people say, or some people ask about, whether the police are on the streets. Obviously we have had police on the streets, and part of that you can see, as a result of, some of those tickets. But, again, you're right. You can, I can't argue with you. You make the decision as far as, where money goes. But I just think that, honestly, that's one that you really have to give some thought to, unless there is, unless you're looking at another alternative, regarding that. Now, I will say, and Eric, I think I may have shared this with you, but if I didn't, forgive me, but I saw over a couple of weekends ago where the village of Cleves, I think, was looking at, in essence, hiring, the county sheriffs for their police service. Yeah. So, I mean, that would probably be and obviously it made the news. So if you're doing something like that, that would have to take a lot of thought. But that could be, one way, as you were pointing out, that that costs could be reduced, in that sense. So I'll just share that with you. It's just a little side note.
I know that discussion has actually came up in the past, especially when you see other communities, whether it's Cleves or Lincoln Heights or whatever, who have in the past done that. They've felt that one way or the other, that was the only or best option, was to just pay the county sheriffs to patrol their area. So.
Yes, and the difference, though, Jim, I will say this is, like, in the situations with, like, for example, Silverton or Lincoln Heights, those are villages. And so of course, as villages, they do not have the authority to enter into collective bargaining agreement contracts. And so that is one of the, advantage. I don't want to say advantage, but that would be one of the reasons that they themselves would be looking at, hiring the sheriffs, as you were pointing out.
Gotcha.
Okay, so, well, Mr. Mosby, the only thing that I would just add to kind of to this discussion is that, of course, if we had the software, I would assume that it would be easier to generate the reports that we're asking for.
That is true.
It wouldn't require, and while the graphics were very nice, and I appreciate the effort that must have gone into that, we're not 12. We don't need that. We just need the information. I'm not trying to sound mean, but I mean, it's like I was looking at something my 8th grader put together to say, oh, here's what the police department did. I'm not disparaging it. I really appreciate the report, but the beneficial part for me were the last few pages with the actual numbers and what actually occurred. That was very beneficial. So please communicate my appreciation for the information. And I do have one other question though. My understanding is that there's a software that the city already owns that is capable of producing these kinds of reports. Is that accurate or no? Or do you know about that? And I don't know the name of the software, so I can figure that out and then come back and ask you in more detail about what I'm asking about.
Well, you could. My suspicion is that you may be talking about CMI, which is a system that we use primarily for our finances. We don't use it for safety. I do believe that they may have a component because they're a fairly big firm, but I believe that they may have a component. But I've talked to Chief about this several months ago, and we agreed that as far as their work and as far as their communication is concerned with other with other forces, that that perhaps the best and most economical solution for us is the one that that he's selected for the record keeping system.
What is the name of that program?
Oh, please forgive me. I forgot the name of it right now. But it is he had done a search of about 3 or 4 different record keeping systems. And these are, some of them were used by, other departments within the county. And again, when we're looking at price and we're looking at what it is capable of doing, this is why I was just talking to him about it last week, just to confirm, when it would be up and running, which is, as I mentioned before, October.
Mr. Mosby, did he compare it to CMI? Did he compare that to CMI? Because I heard you say something about the price being more feasible or more economical.
Well, I said economical, right? That, yeah, basically, that
But
I
I
don't
guess
remember
my
the
thought
cost for
is if we-
CMI. I don't remember the cost for CMI right now.
Right. I guess my thought is if we already have the program and they're capable of doing it, I would think that would be more economical than purchasing a new system. That's why I asked, were the prices compared between the new company or the new software and what we already could possibly tap into?
Right. Well, CMI is not like, I think, Mayor, as you know, CMI is, as I mentioned, it's a big company. So it's pretty almost like, the software that we're using for, for payroll, right, which has many components to it. And then you can add on to those components. So I do believe that that reporting system that you're referring to is one that could be added on to. It's not necessarily part of it, but rather it's something that you could, purchase separately to add on. But I could certainly ask him so that I can, so that I can get that information if that will be helpful to you.
Okay, again, I'm not certain what, what, I just assumed that it was CMI. I'm not sure. I just know that I had, talked to maybe someone else on a different city council or something. So what I plan to do to follow up is maybe try to figure out who it was I was talking to, get a copy of the report that they showed me, and then maybe we can take a look at that and figure out if the new program is going to do kind of what I saw the other program was capable of doing. So I just need to get some more information, and I'll do that and provide that to Mr. Mosby.
That's fine. Although I suspect that it would only, because the only other system, well, outside of the the fire department, they do have a timekeeping and they have a system there, obviously, but the only other system that we have in administration would be that CMI system. That is a system that basically keeps all of our financial records.
Okay, fair enough. Ms. Hartman, Mr. O'Shea, do you guys have any questions about any of that, or comments or concerns?
No.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the speed hump proposal that Mr. Hedger has been working on. I believe that I attached a copy of the proposal as well as the potential legislation. Did you all have an opportunity to review that?
I did not
Yeah.
look at it.
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea, you did not look at it. Okay. Well, Ms. Hartman, what did you think?
I I don't know. There's a lot there. But I think with grants and things like that, if you can find the areas to put it, that's great. There was a part about it only can be so close to stop signs, right?
Right.
And traffic lights. So I guess my curiosity is, where would they go then? Because we have quite a lot of that. And what was it, 5? I forget what the feet was. What was the feet? It can only be, hold on. Does anybody remember the feet?
Yes,
I do remember seeing the page that had like the different that had that information on it. I just kind of read through it, but I didn't.
Erica,
I mean, I guess I'd be really curious. I mean, is to have someone come out and tell us, have we done that? Can we do that? Will that happen?
So Mr. Hedger wanted me to refer this to council, but I'm just not, I don't know that I'm comfortable doing it yet. So what I will do is maybe follow up with Mr. Hedger about this. Mr. O'Shea, if you could take an opportunity to read that. So
yeah,
we can
I
get
had a question.
Sure.
The legislation mentions the exhibit, I guess they refer to it as Exhibit 1, is attached. Is the speed hump program document the exhibit?
That is what my assumption is.
Okay.
But I will check with Mr. Hedger to make sure.
Okay. And do you know if this is the same speed hump program document that he presented at one of the previous meetings? Is there any changes to this that you're aware of?
I am not certain about that either. So
it looks like the same one. It's the same one. Well, I guess my concerns is like, you know, it can't go behind a driveway. There's a stop sign at every corner in the city. There's traffic lights. I mean, I just don't know where they would go. I mean,
Yeah,
Ms. Underwood.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Mosby.
I was gonna say I'm smiling a little bit because I appreciate what Ms. Hartman is saying, but you all are going to get a very real idea of this because you voted that the bid that was excuse me, the project that was being bid on, which is the Galbraith Goodman Road project.
Okay.
You voted to make sure that there was a requirement in there for traffic calming. And so our engineer did put speed humps in there as a requirement.
Okay.
Now, I think I sent the email to you all with the winning bid. And then I also showed you or told you that that is going to cost about $23,000. Now, in addition to that, though, I do need to make this clear, and this is the reason I wanted to bring it up. In between, so the project, at least on West Galbraith Road, extends from Bobolink to the east to Hamilton to the west. And in that stretch, you have already 5 signals, including the signal at Hamilton and Galbraith. That is inclusive of that. Now, if you're going to put in speed humps, that means that you are going to have the speed humps or bumps plus the traffic signal. So that you will find out as you mentioned what that is going to be like, once that project gets underway.
Well, Mr. Mosby, did they include other? I haven't had an opportunity to read that document, honestly, and I was just wondering because I know that there are other kinds of traffic calming measures. Like I've seen communities actually eliminate that kind of turn lane that we have on Galbraith, where people don't actually turn from or they very rarely turn from the lane. They actually use that as a passing lane.
Right. They do.
Which is completely not safe, but was there any thought to maybe eliminating that lane or kind of and any other things that they could do?
Well, no, I mean, because council's request was to do something to, mitigate the speed there. So given the time that we had, that was why our engineer, had incorporated that into the bid itself. I mean, if you're asking Erica for like a complete traffic study, that's something that perhaps, that's not a state route though. That is more of a MRF. It's a county route. I mean, I could talk to the county engineers to perhaps see. I mean, ODOT even still they might be willing. It's not, like I said, it's not a state route, but perhaps they might find a way for to help us with that. If council wants a traffic analysis done on Galbraith Road, that certainly would be. I do believe that's probably something that we could do. And then I'm sure that particular firm would then make, whatever recommendations they feel would be appropriate, for that street, which of course is, Galbraith Road. So that certainly would be one alternative. And I totally would agree with that.
So,
but I think we ought to get that before before any decision is made, though.
Right. What would a traffic analysis involve? Like what would be involved in that?
So that's a great question. And I'm smiling because I'm going back to my ODOT days. But a traffic analysis includes everything from the traffic count. They'll look at the existing traffic calming measures. They will look at turns. They'll look at the number of accidents that are reported on that particular stretch of road. They'll look at all of those things. So the volume of traffic, they'll look at the average speed. And, from there, the traffic engineers would then, basically make one or several, recommendations on what they think that we would be able to do. I would go back, if I may, though, just to reiterate something that Ms. Hartman said, and that is, with the number of signals that we already have, and in many cases, those signals are much closer together than what the ODOT recommendation would be, which would be somewhere between 800 to 1,000 feet. And part of the reason for that is to keep traffic flowing as smoothly as possible. So, it would look at those things, and then, like I said, they would make recommendations based on that.
Okay, so when you say they would make recommendations, who is the they that you're talking about? Like who would
Whoever would do-
actually,
Yeah,
who
whoever would do the
does
traffic
who
analysis.
would do the traffic analysis? Who does that?
Well, there are plenty of companies that do it. There you have traffic engineering companies that, that do that kind of work, traffic analysis. I can't, I was trying to think of one right now. I can't think of one, I'm sorry, off the top of my head, but there are several companies that do it.
And do you know about what the cost of that would be?
I guess it would depend on several things. Number one, like what stretch of road they're looking at. So if we're asking, it would be different, if they're just looking at the stretch between, Galbraith and Clovernook and Bobbling, than it would be if they're looking at the entire stretch from, let's say, Bobbling to Simpson. So that would have some impact on it. And then I guess to the degree that there are, like I said, if we're looking at the number, the complexity, I guess, which would include, like I was mentioning before, if we're looking at the number of accidents, or if we're looking at, trying to incorporate some other kind of traffic mitigation. Right now, the thing that comes immediately to mind is, for example, if we're looking at specific intersections where we do have to have special signals for visually or hearing impaired, that may have some impact on it as well. So, I mean, there could be a number of things. So I could not give you a specific number. I could probably give you a rough range. It would be at a minimum probably $3,000 for a complete analysis. But that could go as high, certainly, as anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000.
Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to table this discussion. I'm not going to refer this to council floor at this point. I just think we need to kind of discuss it a little bit more to kind of figure out what we want to do with that. I don't know if speed humps on Galbraith is the best idea, but I just think we probably need to discuss that a little more. So I'm just going to table that at this time.
I agree.
Okay, so the next on the agenda is the mayor's task force update. I was actually at the last task force meeting, and we kind of all agreed that we need to do something about the fire department. And we kind of were, talking to Chief Fells about if we were going to do a levy, like what would be required. And I think that we were talking about that because of the success that Mount Healthy had with their levy, and the fact that we now would be the only fire department in our area without the full-time staff or something. Chief Fells was explained to me. And Mr. Mosby, if I'm probably getting that information incorrect, there's something, now that Mount Healthy has passed their levy, like we're kind of a outlier. Do you know what he was talking about?
Yes, and you're not off at all. The levy that was passed, and I would say this for the benefit of Ms. Hartman as well as Mr. O'Shea, the levy that they passed is basically going to be used to support the hiring of 7 full-time firefighters. And so what Erica is referring to is the fact that they will at least now be able to staff, once they get those firefighters in place, they will at least be able to staff their fire station with 2 people, you know, 2 full-time people every day, basically. And so the point that we're making, the point that Brian was making, was the fact that right now we only have 3 full-time firefighters, which means that we can only staff 1 full-time firefighter per day at the fire station. And so if for some reason we cannot be fully staffed at, you know, at the very minimum 3, then we would need help. And he used as an example, you know, of course, the unfortunate incident that happened with the young boy on Betts Avenue, and the fact that we didn't even have the complement of 3, and so therefore the police had to assist in getting the child to the hospital. So yes, you are absolutely correct. We would probably be in the position, Erica, that we would need more mutual aid than we're giving.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about that?
Not right now.
Did Chief Fells give any indication to his preferred levy amount if we went that route?
He actually has a lot of numbers and a lot of charts based on
always does.
different levels of a fire levy. And what I mentioned to Chief Fells is that I have a doctorate degree and I didn't understand those charts. So I'm sure that if you wanted a copy of those, he would be more than happy to provide you with a copy. And for anyone who's under the sound of my voice, since you can't see my face today, Chief Fells is more than happy to provide those numbers to anyone who asks for them. He's very transparent that way. But he actually was, he just provided us with numbers for different levels of a fire levy, reminded us that the fire levy that we currently have is going to expire next year. So we really have to do something, or else, we will really be in trouble. Because, as I've mentioned before, we are required to provide a fire department as a service. So we definitely have to kind of make a move one way or another. So he's very transparent, Jim, and he had several different levels and what he would be able to do with each different level and that kind of thing. So I would I guess I could probably follow up and get copies of those, some kind of electronic copies of those reports from him and forward those to this committee.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the police task force, still no movement on that, and I will keep you all posted on that. I think that I have figured out what the rules are. There's just no movement at this point in time. Just no movement. That's all I have.
Yeah, Erica, and we can speak. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but if you could get in touch with me, I would like to certainly meet with you about that one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
There are quite a few people who have reached out to me about that. So even just from word of mouth, the response has been kind of extremely overwhelming. And, I'm just trying to determine how to decide who takes a part in that, because we can't have 50 people on a task force. You wouldn't get anything done. So I'm just trying to, other than bang my head up against the wall, why did I volunteer to do that? Just figure out the best.
No, that's why I want
way
to talk to
forward.
you. And digressing a little bit, but I mean, Jim brought something up earlier, and I would hope that with the complement of members of council that we have, we recognize that, we should be here to help each other, that we don't have separate entities, but, all of us need to work together, right? It's, because just like you all, I live here. So, I mean, I know that anything that I do, I'm vested in. And so obviously there are some things that, that I have done or looked into, and, this happens to be one of those. So that's why I would love to talk to you about this.
Okay, and I will schedule that meeting with you.
Okay.
Huh.
Can I have a cookie?
Okay. I like a cookie too.
Can I have one?
Oh,
So as far as old business is concerned, briefly, we talked about the document formats and the rules and public policy meeting. And, there has been some movement on that. I just need to meet with Mr. Mosby to kind of, get that finalized. Other old business is the police software. I know I'm going to continue to whine about it until I actually know that it's in place. And I know that it's coming in October, but it's just kind of one of those things where, it's coming, but it's like, I don't see, until I see it like in place, I'm going to keep whining about it. Whining, beating the dead horse, or whatever that phrase that Mr. O'Shea uses, whatever that is, I'm going to keep doing it. It happens. So I know. So I know it's coming. I know it'll be here in October, allegedly.
That's fine. That's fine.
So the last thing was safety procedures for in-person meetings. We had talked about that before, and Mr. Miller Novak, who actually contacted me, he wasn't available for the meeting this evening. We are able to continue to meet by Zoom until December, according to the governor's order. So, I think that it's certainly appropriate for us to do that. But I think that we really do need to figure out a way for citizens to participate in our committee meetings as well as our council meetings. We really need to figure that out.
mm-hmm.
And I think Ms. Zorb, who also couldn't be here this evening, she mentioned that there was some kind of hybrid meeting model that that
Yeah.
ICRC has. So we should put that in place as soon as possible.
She did meet with ICRC, and I talked to them as well. And there's a challenge that we have, and it is our basically, the service that we have coming in, which we have a internet service that provides us 200 megabytes of downloading speed, but approximately, I think it's 11 megabytes of uploading speed, and I believe that that ICRC requires a minimum of 20, so 20 megs. So in order for us to do that, obviously we would have to determine how much more that's going to cost, because obviously that's almost double what we have, which is probably going to double, which would double our our monthly bill for that. Maybe not double, but definitely at least 50%. And then the other part of what they were requiring was a mounted like a mounted screen that would be needed. Now I can talk to them in a little more detail about it, but that would be an expense that we would have to incur for that.
Well, Mr. Mosby, what I would say to you is that maybe we should weigh the cost of the mounted screen and the increased internet with a potential lawsuit from someone who wants to speak at a meeting and they don't have the ability to do that. I mean, I think that we're placing ourselves in harm's way potentially by having meetings and no one can participate or attend or whatever. I just think that we just need to, it's a very easy fix. You know, even if we can't do it that way with the, with increasing the whatever you just described, that's obviously not my forte either. Maybe, you know, there could be like a waiting room, like for Zoom, like they have to figure out how to Zoom into the meeting or something, like with advance notice of a certain amount of time, something like that.
Well, with the council meetings, I do know that you all have already established a policy that if a person, you know, would like to submit something, they could do that in writing, obviously, to the clerk, and then that could be, you know, that could be submitted to and spoken into the record. So they have that ability already before the meetings. If you're talking about committee meetings, you know, obviously that would be something that would be up to you all, but if you just wanted people to, you know, participate with that, but there's already a way for, you know, people to certainly communicate, you know, right now for them to submit their concerns, you know, in writing and have them into the record for council.
Is there any new business at 8:26?
I'm good.
Ms. Hartman?
I'm good. I'm sorry. I was dealing with a dog.
It's okay. Mayor Nichols?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Mosby?
No, I don't have any additional information.
Okay, so if there being nothing else at this time, I think we're doing pretty good on time. At 8:27, I will adjourn our meeting.
Have a good evening,
Have
everybody.
a good night, folks.
All right,
Good night,
y'all.
everybody.
Good night.
night.
Thanks.